Welcome to Wealthing Talks. I am your host, Alicia Castillo Holley, bringing you real-life conversations from Silicon Valley or somewhere around the world. We will talk about disruptors, angel investments, venture capital, and of course, family offices. Join me along with my children, their families, friends, disruptors, and investors as we explore the fascinating world of creating wealth in a completely different and authentic way. Hello, everyone, and it is such a pleasure to invite Kethees to our podcast. Kethees, thank you so much for spending this time with us.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with where you are now. What are you doing today, and how did you get to do this?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Alicia. Yes, it's a great it's a story and a journey of an immigrant. I was born in Sri Lanka. I'm ethnically a Tamil, born in a northern town called Jaffna. Did my younger days there, migrated to the US after my high school days, basically escaping the civil war that was taking place in the country back then. Moved to the States, landed in Arizona, and went to undergrad and grad school there. Went to studied electrical engineering, undergraduate and grad school at Arizona State University in Tempe, Arizona. So that was my home for the first 5 years in America. And then moved to Chicago when the first real world job opened up. I worked for a wireless infrastructure company called Motorola back in the day, the heydays of Motorola in Chicago area. Learned a lot about real world industry and business and how that laid the foundation for the creativity and innovation passion that lit up towards the end of those 5 years I spent in Illinois. Um, I left Chicago around January in 2000 thereabouts because I got bitten by the startup bug and the independent streak in me and the one that's itchiness I have to do something different and impactful eventually caught up with me, and I moved to Bay Area. Joined a wireless infrastructure startup doing something very innovative in very compact, ruggedized network deployments that can be done at scale for both in the remote areas of the world as well as for some critical infrastructure for national security and other applications. So we started there, and then was lucky enough to join another startup later on across the bay here in Berkeley, California, where we built a large-scale network monitoring product, and that was we had a good exit. I was part of the leadership team when the company got acquired by a large public company called NetScout. That was in 2013, and that lesson I learned about how do you build large, complex, technology-driven startups, and how do you get a good investor returns and for employees as well as the all the other stakeholders. That learned a lot of lessons, and then stayed at the acquiring company for a couple of years, and then I started this company, Puloli, where I am currently CEO of the company here, and co-founded with a longtime colleague of mine by Kevin Kohler and myself, started this company. We had a couple of pivots along the way. The latest one was as a result of a lot of the environmental and climate regulations and policies being reversed in the last year and a half, which essentially pulled the rug underneath a lot of the climate tech companies. But the ultimate test for innovation and ultimate test of a startup is that how do you respond to such respond to macroeconomic conditions is a test, and I'm happy to report we have successfully passed the test because here is a fundamental lesson, and we'll talk about it a bit more detail later on, but which is you have to solve a fundamental problem. And if you are solving a fundamental problem, there's a fundamental pain that pain point they're addressing. adjusting business model may be necessary, but as long as the problem is there, you will find a way to find the right business model, regardless of the macroeconomic conditions. That's the big lessons we learned in the past couple of years.
So do you think you find a problem, or do you think the problem finds you?
I think it's a little bit of a both. The problem has been there for a long time. I think the matching with the right solution in the business context is we found it. So in a way, that's the fundamentals, right? You have to solve a pain that exists that has not been solved at scale. So Scope One is the new business unit that we have launched, and it has been a quite a successful journey so far since we launched it. Uh, the fundamental premise behind this is that before the first business model we tried with the same technology was to collaboratively deploy large-scale methane monitoring with the intent of reducing methane emissions. That model, collaborative deployment model, ran into headwinds due to administration change. So what we did is that when we decided, say, instead of doing collaboratively, the fundamental problem is measuring methane is still there. So instead, we do public model. So now we are doing a public subscription model where the same technology gets deployed at scale all around the usual emission sources, and now we make the data available for public. The basic monthly report is available for anybody to sign up and receive free of charge, and then high level tiers for detailed information. That is a subscription model. And that's how we make our revenue currently. So Scope One is what I do now. And it's a long journey. So you go through multiple startups, multiple lessons learned. You find yourself in the right place at the right time. For those that happens to those who keep on persisting and being focused on what they do.
Yeah, that is correct. So how does I'm going to take a step back about the problem that you're solving, because some of our listeners are not from the US and they might not understand why do we need to measure methane and
Mhm.
why is it important on a global scale.
Mhm.
So give us a little bit more of a technical problem slash solution, and why is it important for us as humans, not just as business.
Yes, methane is the largest pollutant and global warming agent today.
Okay, that's where I
Pretty
want to get to. Okay.
plain and simple. The way where before the Industrial Revolution in our human history, methane has been in the atmosphere, but it has had a find a nice. It has been equilibrium has been maintained due to natural cycles of release and absorption by the normal natural processes. When humans came in and start industrializing heavily, we started emitting methane in disproportionately very large number. And methane today, the anthropogenic sources, the man-made sources of methane are oil and gas, fossil fuel industry, some agricultural sources, and dairy and wasteland. All of these four man-made sources are releasing much higher number of much greater methane into atmosphere than it has been before 100 years ago. What methane does when it goes up in the air is that it absorbs the heat that's coming up back from the earth due to solar radiation. So solar sun generated heat, the bounces back from the earth towards the atmosphere, but it gets reflected back to the earth by methane molecules. Methane has a heat absorption property where at a certain wavelength and a certain conditions, it absorbs the energy and reflects it back down and breaks up into carbon dioxide and water. Uh, that reflection back to Earth is the single largest reason why the atmosphere, the climate is warming up, global warming. The good news is typical CH4 methane molecules lives about 10 years on average.
Hmm.
So if we reduce the methane emissions today, in our lifetime, we will see a noticeable reduction in global warming. That is the single most important thing we can do as humans to reduce global warming. It is doable. It's a low-hanging fruit. It is the technologies exist to a large-scale reduction. What is missing is number one, large-scale monitoring of how much really is happening, and number two, policies and initiatives worldwide to make it a priority for the society to put in places reduction mechanisms on all the four man-made sources. So our contribution, scope one, is that we want to be the source of truth for methane emissions, so that tell the world exactly what's happening, how much is going on, and the places where people are making reduction efforts, verify and certify it is indeed being reduced. Having a third party verify and validate the reduction is key to one thing, building credibility and building mechanism
Yeah.
for corrective action. So that's what we do.
That's fantastic. And that's what I think the company is very interesting to me. I just read an article by another climate investor saying that what we're trying to do with climate is like having a person that has a wound and cutting, and then we put a band-aid. And then we make another cut and we put another band-aid. And we make another cut, we put another band-aid. And he said that's how we're targeting climate change. So we continue creating the cuts, but we don't let the person bleed because we keep putting band-aids on top. But he says we really need to figure out how we stop cutting ourselves.
Mhm.
And what you're doing is you're allowing people to have the mechanisms to evaluate if the cutting is really stopping or not. Because if we don't measure, we can't really act upon it. We can think we're doing something, but we really need to have those measurements really in place. So
Mhm.
that's really interesting. Do you think there's been challenging to demonstrate that you can really provide that measurement?
Yeah, I think that has been a pleasant surprise to us. We were coming into this, we were not 100% sure that um, how much pushback and challenges we will have in the deployment side of the house. Pleasantly surprised that almost none. I mean, there are few rare cases. There are some private landowners don't want to have any kind of sensing equipment on their property. That's less than 1% of all the
No.
cases we had. I mean, we were expecting one out of two pushback. From 50% expectation, we are sub 1%. So that
Oh,
is
wow.
amazingly, yeah, it is. That has been one of the aha moments for us. And that's what makes us very bullish about the future of this model. We realize we are the first one to do land-based independent third-party methane monitoring. But now that we have proven this can be done, the challenge for a category creating company is that you do all the work and you create a script, and then it is possible somebody will try to copy us. But we have such a insurmountable lead and a sustainable technology differentiation and a very rapid go-to-market going on right now. So to answer your question more directly, Alicia, it has been a pleasant surprise so far, and we expect that to be continue the case as we roll out across the U.S. and eventually globally. There are a lot of places around the world this is going to be needed, and we are developing a blueprint and showing the world how this has to be done. It doesn't have to be us everywhere. We should see more and more people in all around the world embracing this model, where whether you do it from the satellites, whether you do it through land, and independent parties verifying emissions is the way that the governments around the world can have a clear and consistent policy in reduction.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you can do it both ways. Yeah. But I do like the fact that if you have the data, then you can do something.
Mhm.
With no data, you're just guessing.
Exactly.
And that leads me to the next question. I'm always interested in how we are creating wealth.
Mhm.
So I want to get to your definition of what wealth is, and
Mhm.
then go into how is your company creating wealth.
Yeah, that's always that question comes up in so many different ways in various conversations I have in both in the professional circles and social circles. as well as in our family conversation. So, my definition of wealth is broader. There is, of course, there is a financial component to it. I think everybody, that need not to be stated explicitly. But my definition of wealth is that what is the impact that this piece of work, the product or the service, or the outcome of our work is going to have on the broader society, and you can measure it in multiple different ways. That is synergistic and additive to the financial benefit. Um, it's not a new concept. I think the wealth needs to be measured in two dimensions at the minimum. The first one is the obvious one. We have lately gone disproportionately very solely focused on that alone, unfortunately, in my opinion. Yes, the investors need to have a very good return. The key stakeholders need to get it. The founders and employees need to have a good return. We can define what good is in a minute, but that is a given. Fundamentally, the capitalist nature of the society, capital nature of us as a species, has to be respected and structured with, but that doesn't have to come at the expense of a broader societal benefit. I think that is where I would like to urge us broadly as a society to slightly reorient ourselves such that, let's say, scope one becomes widely successful. Okay, all the investors have a good return. Okay, check that box. All the employees get a good return. Check that box. Now what? I want to have another metric that defines the wealth for the societal sense. Now you can, in the scope one case, we can say methane reduction policies got put in place. There is a measurable reduction in
Mhm.
molecules going up in the air. 10, 15, 20 years from now, if we cap it, and even better, we start reducing it, we can see in 10, 20, 15 years from now, in lifetime of most of us listening to this podcast, we will see an impact. I think if I would like to define a wealth indicator in addition to the standard financial indicators
Mhm.
as the broader definition of wealth. That's that I that is my my perspective of defining wealth. Different people, again, that's I don't know whether that's right or wrong answer to any of these things, but I think that's my perspective.
I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, and more importantly, I think that answer keeps evolving with time because we're not fixed. We're not machines. We're humans. We keep, like you were just mentioning, the
Hmm.
trajectory of your company, and as people, we keep moving in one way or the other.
Yeah.
We have a way we measure it at Wealthing.
Hmm.
We call it the multiplier effect.
Hmm.
So we say we're money first, but we're never money only because we want to
Hmm.
have a return on our investments. And there's some investments that I've made where my return is more spiritual than financial. But
Hmm.
if I'm going to invest other people's money, I need to make sure that that money is
Yeah.
respected. And that we can talk about that at length, especially even in Silicon Valley, where there's not a lot of respect for money. There's a lot of vanity. And the reason for having these podcasts and people like you is to show the reality of running a
Yeah.
company and the reflections that we have and the more humane approach to uh, uh, life, not
Yeah.
just business. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think if I may add one more point to that, the in a way we are lucky that we found a mission-driven entrepreneurship, a startup that
Mhm.
is equally good at returning good shareholder returns while giving a good societal benefit. It's not always true, right? I mean, we are surrounded by so many companies right now. You go up and down the highway here in 101, from San Francisco to San Jose, look at all the billboards, right? I'm not really sure whether that definition of wealth is being applied in many of those companies. But for us at Scope One and Puloli, the second pivot we did, sometimes when a setback happens in a macroeconomic sense,
Mhm.
you can flip the script and turn it into a huge benefit and
Yeah.
something. I think this is happening not only for us. People are saying just to slightly digress here, Iran war may look like a very bad thing right now, but I think what is happening under the hood is accelerating transition to renewables. So there are
Yeah.
some unintended consequences there. This is related to, so that is an adjacent industry to us. So we are paying close attention to what's happening there. Just like the environmental changes led to us doing scope one,
Yeah.
which is,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So I think societal benefit, this is as long as the fundamentals need something, the nature will find a way to make that happen. And that is our mission. That's the alignment I was talking about in the mission driven um, alignment with the shareholder return.
Well, that's very interesting because I've always known that businesses don't make decisions, people make decisions. So we go back into what are the fundamental values that we need to keep in the individual? How can we support the individual for to becoming
Hmm.
a fundamental nice person? But we're going to get back to that towards the end of the conversation because I want to pick your brains on your learnings. So if you were to write yourself a letter to your younger self, and I'm always concerned about that because now I'm in my 60s. So I say, well, if I were to write myself a letter to my 20-year-old, that's a long period, but
Hmm.
not everybody's as old as I am. But there's so many things that I learned that I didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's so many things that help us become who have we have become, and then we will
Hmm.
continue to evolve. But
Hmm.
what are the things that you would tell your younger self, like when you were in your 20s and when you were studying college? What are the things that you have learned now
Hmm.
that you didn't know? What would you tell yourself? Hey, Katie, look at this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very good question. I think about it more and more. It's funny once, yeah, I think you tend to get to that when as you go past the median of your lifespan, right? So I think, in a nutshell, what I would say is that listen to yourself. Meaning, as a well evolved animal species, we have two fundamental gifts that nature has given us. One is the instinct, that is common to all animal species, and the second one is the reasoning. And I think I would tell my younger self to integrate that and listen to yourself and take advantage of that two uh, very distinct capabilities that nature has endowed on humans. Something most other animal species don't have the reasoning part, but they of course they have the instinct part. We I in my all my lifetime, I could definitely see myself doing better if I apply what I know now in the both on the instinct and reasoning and how integrative and holistic both can be thought through in all the key decisions we make and the key aspect of our lives, that could have even better life and better decisions I could have made on some of the critical ones I did. I think that now I am very conscious about that now, all the decision I make now, and I think I have gotten better. That's something if I had known back then, um, that would have been great. So I think that's what I would say, and I say this to a lot of the younger crowd today. There's a lot of people ask me in various networking events, and there are some of the mentoring sessions. What is the single most important lesson I would like to tell them? This is what I tell them. Take advantage of these two faculties that have been endowed upon us, and it is easily said than done. It is something requires a lot of self-awareness, requires some training of yourself to say, okay, gut reaction versus rational thinking, and how do you balance, and how do you know
Mm-hmm.
you have spent sufficient time on balancing the two for a given decision making. I think that's not easy. It's conceptually easier to say that than put it in practice. But I think as we all get older, we get better at it. And the challenge is that how do you teach that to the younger self? So next generation kids, how do we pass that on, those lessons to them? Anyway, so that's in a nutshell how I would do that. And then if you extrapolate that or extend that into what that means is that don't be afraid, take risks, uh, all along balancing the instinct and the reasoning part. Um,
Hmm.
I think I have been too cautious sometimes, so I will definitely tell my younger self, go with instinct a little bit more. Downplay the reasoning sometimes, and other places where I had overly reasoned and downplayed my instincts. I can a lot of examples in my life career that I have done that. So uh, don't be afraid, take risks, and don't lose your sense of wonder. That's
Your
important.
sense of what?
Have a sense of wonder.
Oh, I love that. Have a
Yeah,
sense of
you gotta. So if you that is what makes you. I think that helps me balance the
hmm.
reasoning side and the instinct side. Um, and There are so many ways you can make it happen in each of your lives. It's not There's no one prescriptive way, but I think letting your mind uh, flow freely and giving yourself time to let that percolate back into your decision making. I think that's another important. All of these falls back to this balancing the instinct and the reasoning. I think that's the key message. I wish I could have done better if I if I knew that back then.
Well, that's the whole reason of this podcast is to share our wisdom
Hmm.
with the younger generation. Because before, the only way we could do it was at a tribe or at this table. I grew up in a little town, so
Hmm.
I mean there was no internet, so all we learned was from the neighbors, and we used to be outside. And probably you too, Ruben definitely did,
Hmm.
our common friend. But
Yeah.
it's just you didn't have the opportunity to listen to all these things. And I think with internet and now with AI, we we've just become more and more separated, and we need to bring back. Hey, these we're humans, we are humans, so we need to
Hmm.
bring back humanity. And that leads me to the last question that I have.
Hmm.
That is, all of these that we've done has something beyond that, and we're gonna die. I have a joke
Hmm.
about that, but I'm not. It's a long joke. So with my son, with my grandson, um, but my reflection about not being here anymore is because when I was 13, I fell off a horse and I ended up in coma for a few days, and I saw myself dead, and I woke up later, and I realized when I was very very young, I had the fortune of realizing that my
Hmm.
life was going to end. So I had this gift of every day, and every day I wake up with wonder, like you said. It's like, oh, great, I have another day to live. It's a great way to start a day. And sometimes it's like, I have to finish this thing. I have to finish that project. But usually I have this opportunity to have another day in front of me. But I know it's going to end. So my
Hmm.
question to my guests is always, um, have you thought about who you are when you're no longer here?
Yeah.
What is your essence? What are you living?
Yeah. This may sound a little radical or somewhat unconventional, but I don't want to be remembered. Here's
Okay.
the thing. Here's what I'm saying. But what I
Okay.
what I do want to see is that my the impact I create live on. So meaning so not to associate my name to anything, but wanted to leave a an impact that hopefully that benefits everybody without knowing who did that. So, for example, if as a result of Scope 1 being successful, 50 years from now, global warming has a downward trajectory. We bend the curve.
Mm,
Okay. So for example, we are living here today. We have a clean air, a clean drinking water, great schools system, plus or minus, great highways. Who did that? Right? Is there a name behind it? No, but we are all beneficiaries of it.
yeah.
So 50
That's
years from
very
now,
beautiful. Yeah.
50 years from now, we bend the global warming curve. We made society more just and more equal as a result because global warming is global, as the name says. It's not America, it's not
Yeah.
It's not Europe, it's not Africa, it's not any particular. It's the global thing. What we do here affects everybody, and what somebody else does in another part of the world affects us. So if I can do that, and it does, then that is what I would like to see my tiny contribution to the long-term well-being of this planet. Because that uh, I not a strong believer in associating people to things for the long-term benefits. Yes, we do say, okay, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King, da, 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 da. Yes, that's all true, but they are five guys and five gals out of billions of people came and went.
Yeah.
To me, that the real impact of every billions of people who came and went is that what did the net effect has been on the planet for the next billions of people coming. To me, that's the incremental benefit that I can do, a little bit that I could do, and hopefully, align with the scope one on the business side, make the business do well at the same time, leave a legacy behind where we can reduce methane and make the world a better place. That's how I want it to be. That is how I want things look like when I'm gone.
Great. Sage, thank you so much for being with us, for
Yeah.
sharing that. How do people contact you?
Best thing is to go to our website. There is a way to contact us, or look me up on LinkedIn. I'll respond to it.
I think I want to start charging LinkedIn because everybody talks about LinkedIn and, they should be sponsoring these. We send a lot of people there, but we do publish this there too. Katie, thank you so much
Thank you
for
very
being
much.
with
Thanks,
us.
Alicia.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Katie is an entrepreneur that has a soul vested into climate change and into making the world a better place as you saw it. We did speak a little bit after the recording about his views on what is the purpose of life. And I think it's very refreshing to get a guest that thinks about adding to a communal effort and making a difference in the world, not through solving problems, but through highlighting how we evaluate the results of the problems that we created. So the diagnostic area is really, really important, especially because without real diagnostics, we cannot see if we need to change something. So I hope you enjoy it. This is your host, Alicia Castillo Holley, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to our Wealthing Talks. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. To stay connected, visit us at wealthing.com. This is Alicia Castillo Holley, your host, and until next time, yours in Wealthing.